Today, our very first guest on our maiden voyage is Chris Weathers. Chris Weathers is the VP of Technology. Chris, can you tell us what a VP of Technology even does?
I'm still trying to figure that out for myself. So yeah, in my role as VP of Technology, I oversee the engineering group primarily. I oversee, some of the technology, kind of like IT operations, that kind of thing. Certainly, part of technology is QA and QE. There's a part of that. And kind of in my day to day, I would say most of my focus is actually on kind of like finding new business opportunities, new clients, and new chances for us to do cool new things. So again, day to day, that's kind of where my focus is. But I basically oversee a little bit of everything on the tech and engineering side.
Yeah, so I'd assume you have your finger kind of on the pulse of new technology coming out
Professionally,
professionally. So is it pretty strong? We got a lot of new stuff coming out.
I feel like it's one of the more exciting times than I can remember. Actually, I would say that technology is always moving quickly. There's always something new in technology, but especially lately, I just feel like there's a lot of buzz throughout the entire industry about new things that are kind of like hitting us fast and furious day by day. So I would say there's a lot going on. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was looking at what's the hip hap happening in a future technology, and some of the things I came across, I was just kind of like, whoa. So, like instant apps, right? Um, you don't really have to download them or install them; they're just kind of on your phone. Can you kind of talk to instant apps?
Yeah, definitely. And instant apps are big on Android, and then the equivalent, I guess, would be app clips on iOS. So both of those exist, and yeah, the idea there is that you have a frictionless way of giving app functionality to a user that doesn't have your app installed. The promise is great, right? Because it can be a limiting factor if you have to install an app through the app store and download the whole thing and dive into it to get functionality. So it's nice to know that you can get little snippets of functionality as needed to get things done without installing that whole app. I would say kind of like the most magical experience that I've come across for that was one of the kind of like restaurant oriented apps. Basically had an app clip set up so that if you're at a restaurant and you're ready to pay, you fire up their little app clip and it just pops up kind of like a buy screen. Here's what you bought, here's what the total is. Do you want to pay for that through Apple Pay? And kind of in just a couple taps, you're settled, your check is done, and you're out the door without ever needing to install an app to get that done. That's a really cool experience. That's a really nice experience. That's a you don't even have to think about it kind of thing. Um, the feature is there when you need it, and then it kind of goes away when you don't. So it's actually a really cool tech, and I would love to see a little more of it. Actually, I feel like it hasn't picked up as much as I would like.
How did that even get to your phone? Like, I mean, did you like QR code it or?
It was a QR code in that case,
Okay.
especially kind of like in the app clip world, there are a few ways to do it. The QR code was one of them. You can assign them to locations on a map, which is cool. And there's also like a custom code style that Apple produced, specifically for app clips. It kind of looks like a QR code, but it's a little bit different. And that's another way that you can launch one of these things. But I will say, I think the number one way that I've seen is QR codes.
Okay.
Interestingly enough, yeah.
Yeah, neat. Well, on the other end of the spectrum, right, are super apps, and we haven't really seen them here in the U.S. or even Europe. But I think they've made like a big splash in Latin America or Asia, and even Africa. So they're like just like I always when I first read about them, I'm like, oh, that sounds like a mall in the 1980s. They like have everything, like a food court, places to drop your kids off for daycare. But they kind of have like a one-stop shop, right? So you can do your banking in it. You can do probably order groceries, that kind of stuff. Is that right? Are you familiar with them?
I've seen a little bit of that, yeah, a little bit, and you're right. It's kind of funny that, at least in my experience, there hasn't been kind of an awareness of those types of apps, or even a need as much. But right, especially in different countries overseas, it feels like there's a bigger audience and maybe a bigger need for it, which is interesting. Yeah.
I think I read that Elon wants to make, excuse me, Mr. Musk wants to make Twitter into that. He's kind of playing around with the idea of making Twitter a super app, but we'll see. I don't know.
it it's sort of a philosophically interesting thing because like, do we as consumers want to go all in on one specific brand to get all of our things done, or do we think about different brands and wanting to use them individually to get things done, right? Do I go to this brand or this app to buy these products, and do I go to this brand or app to manage my finances? Am I going here to record a podcast? These types of things, right? Like, I think we often think about, well, which app is right for that task, and we're not necessarily thinking I go to one company or one group to get all of those things done. We sort of choose the thing that we want, that's comfortable, or that we're kind of like attached to get something done. So it's like a philosophically interesting part to that.
Would that bring up a lot of privacy issues? Have you had?
Well, probably, maybe so. Yeah, right. If everything is kind of being routed through one app and one company, that's a company who now has visibility into many facets of your life that might not normally be as easily intertwined. So, right, that's kind of an interesting concern, isn't it? Maybe there's kind of a
Yeah,
niceness in knowing that my data lives in multiple places.
yeah. Let's not bring it here.
Maybe we're okay with that, but
Maybe
maybe
we're okay.
maybe Elon will get his way. Mr. Musk will get his way. If that is indeed the vision, and maybe that's the direction we'll go. Even on a more micro scale, we've kind of gone through phases in app development where, at certain points, a brand may have had multiple apps. Like maybe. Maybe a banking company would have one app for managing checking and another app for managing like credit cards and that kind of thing, right? Like multiple apps that all fall under one company's umbrella. So that's been one phase. Then there's kind of been a different phase where a lot of groups said, no, I just want one single app that combines all of those things, at least kind of like for that company, right? And it sort of ebbed and flowed, right? The idea of what's the right way, what's the easiest way, what's the right experience. So I don't even know if there's one single answer to that, because I really do think it's changed over the years. So we'll see if it continues to ebb and flow.
We'll see if it ever makes it over here.
That's right.
What about voice-enabled tech? What are some
Hmm.
opportunities there?
It's an interesting one. Let me ask you this: what do you feel about voice tech and the experience of interacting by voice through tech? I'll spin it around to you first.
Well, let me tell you, I didn't start talking till I was like 3 because I just didn't want to talk to people. I could talk probably, but I just didn't want to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
And I've carried that through most of my life. I like to talk when I have something to say, but I definitely don't want to talk to my TV. Like, I'd rather push a button.
Hmm.
So, uh, I'm not real sure about it, to be honest with you.
Do you
Um,
have kind of like an Alexa device at home, or like any of the smart speakers?
I do. I have Google, I have Alexa, and I have Siri.
Okay.
And I do like Siri at night because I can tell her to turn off the lights. I don't have to get up. That's the one concession, is I like to tell her to turn off the lights.
Yep.
Um, but my daughter has alarms set up all the time, and she's never around, so I'm always forever telling Alexa to turn the alarms off. And I'm like, why am I doing this? Why is this my job?
Yep.
So I'm not real sure about it, but I'm
It's
not
a
sure what what uses are, what what are other uses for it, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I think you're touching on something interesting there because there are definitely times when we might not be excited about using our voice to trigger things, right? I actually feel like that technology is especially exciting when, in the moment you have a need for some sort of hands-free interaction, right? That kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know if everybody is going to crave all of their interactions being voice manipulated or voice driven, right? Because there are plenty of times when either you just can't speak out loud or you just flat out don't want to. You're not comfortable with it and it just feels weird. So I do feel like when you need it, like if you're in the car and you need to switch to another song or something like that, or when it's nighttime and you just kind of want to walk to bed and just say, just turn off the lights. Whoever's listening to me, just turn off the lights, please. Right? Like that's a convenient experience and it's a conditional experience. It's situational. But I think you're right that there are plenty of times when it might be more comfortable to not do that, and it might be easier to skip the voice thing at some moments, right? Sometimes through muscle memory, we just know I want to launch this app. I want to tap that icon. The button's going to be here. That will turn off the thing in the home. And that's quick. That's easy. That's the experience I want. So I feel like these voice experiences can be great augmentations to the other technology that we have around us. And I'll say again, though, when you have a need for that voice experience, when the time is right, it can be a lifesaver. It can be very convenient and it can be the right tool at the right time.
Sure. And as a previous life, I was a special education teacher. And of course, I think it's a lifesaver for a whole community of people. And so I'm not poo pooing on it for
Sure.
everyone. But yeah, there's just times I feel like really stupid. Like, hey,
It
Alexa.
it feels a little
But
strange. Yeah, it feels like you're kind of talking to a ghost, right?
or yeah, or when she just starts talking to me and haven't said anything. Like just I was just sitting there talking to my daughter and she's just piped up, I'm sorry you're sad, and she starts giving me all these resources for mental health. I'm just like, what?
How very thoughtful.
Thank you, Alexa. I will take that into consideration. I appreciate it.
Well, there is that creepiness factor. I think that even from day one, when those devices came out, there were always these stories of, oh yeah, my Alexa started to talk to me in the middle of the night, or folks who said their device came on and started laughing in the early days. That can be creepy or odd. So I think that is something that we all need to think about how to minimize those things. You you mentioned something that I think is actually an especially interesting and like powerful point for voice interactions, though, is from an accessibility perspective. This may be a very enabling technology for somebody who may be visually impaired or isn't able to interact with a phone or a controller or these kinds of things, right? That can actually be very empowering to be able to do all of this through voice. And again, like that, consider that a situational thing if you want, but if situationally you are unable to interact with devices in another way, this is also a lifesaver. So that's actually really powerful and really cool.
Yeah, what was that old commercial? Help! I've fallen and I can't get up. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, that would have been amazing
Yep.
during that time. So
That was
yeah,
foreshadowing of what would happen 20
right.
or 30 years later, I guess.
So let's talk about hybrid apps, right? What are hybrid apps?
And kind of the term hybrid can mean so many different
Mm-hmm.
things. Part of it can be that you've built an app that is kind of like running natively on a phone, but that also has sort of like web-based content mixed in. So it's the idea of native code and sort of web code running in the same place. So that can be one version of hybrid. Another kind of term, it's a slightly different thing, but cross-platform apps are the promise with a cross-platform app written in something like React Native or Flutter is that you write one code base and it can be deployed to both Android and iOS with one kind of like singular code base. So the idea of write once, deploy everywhere, can also kind of be like a hybrid thing. And we see a lot of both of those these days, I feel like, and we indeed work on all of those a little bit too.
Well, I feel like they're kind of taking over the market. Would you agree?
More and more, more and more. Yeah, I think especially. I wish I had the numbers on hand, but there's some number that Google just recently announced of X number of apps are now written in Flutter in the store and that kind of thing, and those numbers seem to be growing day by day. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I know I love my iPad, and I'll go to open an app, and then I get this little window because it's not native to the iPad.
Yep.
Poor iPad. Nobody loves the iPad.
I think
I think
that
it's so sad.
the people who love it really love it, but not everybody is bought in on that form factor, which that makes sense.
I'm like, I do half my stuff on it. It's like,
Hmm.
it's like I love it.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I noticed that. So let's talk about Flutter a little bit because I think is that a love of yours? Is it?
I think I would say it's a love of mine. I would say that, and I should say, so our group we work on fully native apps, and we work on React Native apps, and we work on Flutter apps, and I think there's a time and place for all of those, and I think that they all have their strengths, right? Flutter in particular, I think is interesting because it seems to have originated as a mobile first paradigm, a mobile first framework, and a mobile first language. I mean, it was built to build iOS and Android apps. So it almost feels like mobile development, but now it's rolling out to more platforms. Most excitingly, you can deploy to web now, in addition to Android and iOS, which we actually just recently finished, kind of like a proof of concept to explore that. So Flutter is really powerful in that it can deploy to all of those platforms. The developer experience on it is awesome. It is so easy to get a new project just set up and running. I mean, it's literally 3 or 4 command line commands, and you've got a code base set up that honestly and truly can deploy iOS, Android, and web all at once. I mean, it's the first time any developer goes through that, I think that they immediately fall in love with it because it is so easy and so powerful, and the experience is just great, So I would say I'm a Flutter lover, and I think a lot of our developers are from the minute they do that first build and run, and they're like, it can't be this easy. Wait, it's actually this easy.
Flutter lover. All
Hmm.
right.
I would happily put a sticker of that, or maybe even a tattoo someday on my forehead.
Woo. I'm gonna hold you to it. All right.
with a strong maybe on it. But
Okay. Well, okay. So let's talk about the big elephant in the room, Chat GPT.
perfect.
I've been hounding you about this for a while now.
It's the hottest topic. I don't think anybody can go a day without hearing about it or talking about it. So yeah.
The tutorials on YouTube are crazy.
Hmm.
So, what is it? Why does everybody love it? Why does everybody hate it? What's the 411?
Yeah, well, it's an awesome kind of like conversational experience that yeah, if I were kind of like to grossly oversimplify it, it's a great conversational experience that allows you to tap into, the wealth of kind of human knowledge and get some help in finding things or finding the right approach to do things, or it's great at kind of generating starter content for you based on its recommendations and what it has seen elsewhere. And I see it as something like an extremely powerful interactive search engine that also can help you create content in a way that search engines haven't kind of been able to do in the past. So it's tremendously exciting, and I think everybody has. Yeah, well, we talked about Flutter lovers. I feel like there are a lot of Chat GPT lovers now as well, right? Like I think a lot of people have really fallen for it.
I got my job so much easier.
Yeah.
So great. Yeah. No, I've used it. to help me get unstuck a couple times. And I got to say this so my boss doesn't kill me, without putting proprietary code in there.
That's an awesome disclaimer, Teresa. Thanks for saying
You
it.
bet. So, just helpful questions to help me get me over the hump, like how do I do this, and that type. So,
Yeah.
I think it's been really neat. And, um, don't know that I'm a lover, but but
But
I find that I'm using it every day. So,
yeah, which,
oh
which
wait,
is
I'm gonna have to rewind.
it's
I use it
it's
sometimes.
yeah. It's going to know that you've said all of these things, by the way. It is already listening to this. I can't think of another technology that has so quickly embedded itself in the lives of everybody,
Mm-hmm.
including non-technologists as well, right? Like we
Mm-hmm.
are a tech group. We're deep in tech, and so it's almost expected that we're going to find these new things. But you hear about it just even well outside of the technology industry, and I think that
Mm-hmm.
that is really powerful, right? That's exciting. I think that's a great indication of what it is and the value of what it brings. But I think you already mentioned not putting proprietary content in there, which is definitely something that we have 100% stamped on and said yes, this is correct. We you got to be really mindful of what you're putting in there, because the idea of providing content that trains a model for other people to get content out of is a challenging thing when you're talking about who owns, whether it's code, if you're looking for suggestions for how to build something, or if you're kind of like starting a template document, right? Like who owns all of that, and are the true owners of that content aware of how it's going to be inserted into these models and broadcast to others. That's a very legitimate concern. It's one of the top concerns that I have. It's something that we really need to be intentional about.
Mm-hmm.
I did see just the other day one of the engineers in Portugal shared a great article with me that I had not seen, that actually had mentioned that OpenAI has now provided a control that allows you to opt into or out of putting your terms into the greater model, and you're able to opt out of training the model,
Okay.
which is a good step in
Mm-hmm.
maybe the right direction. There's almost kind of an ethical question that I have there. Like
Okay.
you're accepting the results of the model, but you're kind of not contributing to the betterment of
Yeah.
the model, right?
Yeah, yeah, that defeats the whole purpose of it, right?
Maybe so, maybe so. Or again, is it that some content should be used to populate a model like that when other content really legitimately should not be used for it, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
these are the kind of interesting ethical questions that I think come up when you're talking about a tool like this, and they are the things that make me want to move a little bit slowly on these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that we do need to be careful. Just we as technologists, we as professionals, but even we as just a society that uses technology should be mindful of these things, because before you know it, things will move fast. Things might get away from you, and we may get into some tricky situations before we even realized that it happened, right? So I'm at least trying to bring a little bit of caution to the table when I'm thinking about these. So,
Who
but
would have thought there was ethics in tech? I never would have thought. No, I'm just kidding.
when I was finishing up my degree in computer science and engineering, one of the last classes that I took, it was kind of like a senior level class, and it was called Computers, Society, and Ethics. And it was not related to coding or development or anything. It was just, let's take a look at some case studies throughout the past few decades at the time of technology and how it was used in society, and some of the surprise outcomes that happened. And I was actually very appreciative to take that class, and I was appreciative that I got to take it at the end of my curriculum, because it's awesome to expose yourself to that technology ethics side and think, yes, we're able to build all of these amazing things. We're able to do so much with technology, but you have to have that pause and think, are there things we're not thinking about? How will this impact, humans around us in a real way, or society around us in a real way? And are we really doing our due diligence to think through those details before we dive all in on, let's use this new technology. So technology ethics is definitely a thing, and something I would say I'm actually passionate about, especially after that class. That it really opened my eyes to, hey, we might need to think some of these things over.
Do you think anybody thought through Twitter?
Oh, I don't know, Well, and even there's the question of, did they think about what it was in the beginning, but could they have predicted what it would become, or Facebook or any of these things that have significantly morphed from point A to point B, C, D, right? Like the thing that everybody may have thought about in the beginning may be drastically different from what they've become, right? So it's almost this ongoing question of analyzing the ethics of what you're working on, because things change along the way.
Sure does. All right, you ready for some rapid fire questions?
Lay them on me.
All right, rapid fire questions. There's no right or wrong answers, just whatever comes to mind.
I'm nervous. Okay.
Are you? All right. Apple or Android?
I'm an iOS user. Apple for me, but I love both.
Pick a side.
I'm an iOS guy. That'll get my vote, just because I have carried an iOS iPhone for 10 plus years, so they have my heart.
My dog's name is Apple, right?
Well, yes, exactly. So there you go. Is that your answer, by the way?
That would be my answer.
Okay.
All right. Sam O'Neill, Jurassic Park, or Chris Pratt, Jurassic Park?
Sam Neill, yeah.
Very good.
There's one. Oh, this is probably going to be the most controversial thing I might say on this whole thing. There's only one movie in the Jurassic franchise in my mind, and it's Jurassic Park.
The first one. The very, very first one.
That's it.
Agreed.
That's it.
Agreed. New York City airports bathrooms or DIA bathrooms?
Oof, the hard-hitting questions. Maybe the DIA ones. I feel like the New York airports are extremely busy, and it's harder to get in and out of them. There's a lot of traffic, and the DIA ones are a little bit more mellow or less crowded, so it's easier to get in. So I'll take that.
I'm gonna have to take your word for it, because I haven't been in any of them.
Come on out. We'll do a tour.
That's all I want to do, is go to New York City and take a tour of the bathrooms with you. That's it.
No seeing the Statue of Liberty, no Central Park, nothing like that.
Unless it has a bathroom.
That's right. That sounds like the perfect time.
It would. Think of the pictures we'd have.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Teresa using the restroom in the Statue of Liberty.
I don't know. The audience for this one might be particularly slim, but I like to think that there's an audience still. So.
There's an audience somewhere. All right. Fictional person you would want in an escape room with you?
A fictional person, though. Gotta be somebody like a Sherlock Holmes. But, well, actually, though, hold on. It's in an escape room, though?
Yeah.
So I don't want to take like a Sherlock Holmes, because we're going to be in and out of there in like 1 minute, and we're not going to get our money's worth. So I need somebody that's a little more, let's go with the Jurassic Park side of things, and I'll take Ian Malcolm. He's a smart guy. He'll also make the thing very fun, right? And he may not immediately solve the puzzles and get us right out of there in 1 minute. So let's go that route.
All right. How about a Wunderman Thompson apps person? And don't take me, because I just sit there and watch everybody.
I was about to say Teresa. So if not Teresa, who?
I just watch and drink beer.
Let's see here. I got to tell you, especially recently, I've been told time and time again what a wizard Blair is at solving technical problems. And I don't even need to be told. I've witnessed it. So Blair from the DevOps team, or the DevOps team, I would go with Blair. He's a heck of a wizard and a smart cookie, and I think that he could do some damage in an escape room like that.
Oh my God, isn't he? He's my hero.
Yep.
I'm
You were
gonna
my
be
first
Blair when I
choice,
grow up.
so yeah,
Oh,
yeah, exactly.
yeah. We'd be stuck because we'd just be drinking beer and going, well, I don't know. I don't know.
Which
All
is
right.
a big win in its own right. So I'll take it. I'll take it.
Okay, I'm gonna see if I can share my screen because I want to see if you can name this movie clip.
Okay. So I do recognize that. I don't recognize myself, but that is me. And there's a really long story attached to this, but there is a story that now a full feature-length film that's loosely based on an experience that happened in my life when a bike of mine got stolen in middle school. And what you just had on screen there was, call it like a prototype of what a friend and I, a good friend and I, were going to create. But he actually turned it into something way higher level, something that's fantastic and a full length thing. He also got a bunch of my friends and even family involved in recording and filming this film. And they kept it a secret from me for, I think, over 10 years, which is crazy. And I've said if I have trust issues, that's probably one of the reasons why, because a whole bunch of people around me in my very close circle were filming this thing for 10 years, and I had no idea, and it was a story about my life, again, loosely. So, yes.
Yes, I found that one, but it didn't have you in it, so I wanted. I went with this one.
Well, it's perfect,
So,
yeah.
yeah, it was awesome.
It's also weird that in the final product, somebody else was playing me. I was not playing myself. Somebody else played the character of Chris. And they probably played a better version of me, I think. They would win the Oscar. I
No,
wouldn't.
no. Nobody plays Chris like Chris.
Ah.
Ah, so that's it. So that was awesome. I appreciate your time, and I learned a lot. So
Well,
we're
it
gonna do this
was.
again sometime.
I would thank you so much for putting it together. Thanks for inviting me. I've been very excited about it. And yeah, why don't we say hopefully the first of many, both with others, and I would love to do it again, I'm sure.